My name is Manohar Kulkarni. I welcome you to this ME Connect series on behalf of the department. And today our presentation will be uh, the team from Design for America. With that said, I'll turn it over to Professor Liz Garber.
Hi. Hi, everybody. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Hannah Cohen and Maddie Ward. They have been leading the Design for America Northwestern studio chapter for the last year. I just want to give them a shout out because they led it during a pandemic. So way to go, Maddie and Hannah. Not an easy thing to lead a group in that time. And so I'm going to let them take it from here. As some of you may know, Design for America started at Northwestern in 2009, and it's a student-led organization. And so we thought it was most appropriate for Hannah and Maddie to lead the conversation. So with that, Hannah and Maddie, can I turn it over to you?
Perfect. Thank you, Liz. I was just trying to share my screen and it says that participant screen sharing is disabled. Would you mind enabling that for me?
Hi, everyone. So we thought we would start with just a little activity. So we were wondering what your definition of design is. And so you can actually annotate right on the screen. If you go to view options, usually there's an annotate function. I don't know if you have to be co-host for that. Does everyone see that option?
I don't see it, Hannah, but might we write in the chat? Would that be okay as well?
Yeah, that works too.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I'll be sure in a second, but please continue to write in the chat.
Yeah, what is your definition of design? If anyone would like to share, just pop it into the chat so we can get the conversation started. I see creating new products, the process of changing the status quo. Oh, these are very interesting. A process or system that meets constraints, often conflicting. Yes, all about balancing needs, requirements, constraints, creating something new, innovation. Yeah, I think these are all accurate descriptions because I think design is something that's very broad. And so I looked up the definition just on dictionary.com, and it was also broad because it's hard to define as something that can be applied to so many things. And so just online it said to create, fashion, execute, or construct according to a plan, which I think all the answers in the chat kind of speak to, and they all speak to a different aspect of it. And so usually when we think about design, if you want to go to the next slide, Maddie. Usually when we think about design, we also think about it in relation to a specific sector or industry. And there's also different types of design that can be related to these things. So there's product design, graphic design, architecture, fashion design. And they can also be applied, to all these different industries and to namely social impact. And so that's what we are going to be focusing on today. So that being said, Maddie and I like to think of design also as all these things, but as a more of a system and an approach to problem solving. So less about the product and more about the approach, and that can really be applied to every single industry or every single problem that someone is trying to solve. And so more specifically, we like to use an approach called human-centered design. And I think it's been getting a little bit more popularized throughout different industries. Some of you may have heard of it. But what human-centered design is it's a philosophy that empowers an individual or team to design products, services, systems, experience, really anything to address the core needs of those who experience the problem. So really shifting the focus back onto the user and to the person who you're really designing for. And so this process really takes the form of, the graphic just describes it nicely, where it's inspiration, ideation, and then implementation. So inspiration being seeing problems throughout the world, just noticing things that can be fixed. Ideation being thinking about approaches to solving that problem, and then implementation, which is going out, doing the research, and then testing it. And so I think this is a nice depiction, but also it would be better if it was circular, because we like to think of it as more of an iterative process that's always continuing, you're always iterating on the idea and trying to improve it. And something I'd like to also highlight is the first step being empathy. So I think a lot of designers get caught up in their own design and the process and the math behind it, depending on the sector that they're working in. And so the real thing to keep in mind is the person who you're designing for and the empathy that goes into it, thinking about what it's like to experience the world from their eyes. And so I think that's what really human-centered design is about. And just a quick little graphic on the next slide to show what's not human-centered design. So it's a good design, but it's showing where that they didn't really ask people what they need or what they want. We tried to get a picture actually from campus. I don't know if you've all noticed the path from Ford to the Shakespeare's Garden in the back. That's all trotted on. So it's not really asking like about what people are actually doing, what students actually want. There's also one of those paths right in front of Plex Lawn. So if you notice those next time, you'll see it was not using human-centered design. And so at DFA, what we try to do is use this approach, human-centered design, to tackle social problems in our community. And I'll pass it over to you, Maddie.
Awesome. So as Hannah mentioned, Design for America, or DFA as we call it, is an organization that equips students with design thinking and innovation techniques to help tackle social problems within the local community. And for the past year, Hannah and I have been co-studio leads for Design for America at Northwestern, and we've also been members of the organization for a little bit longer than that as well. And to dive a little bit deeper into it from a holistic sense, Design for America was originally started at Northwestern University in 2009, and it has now reached, I think, 44 and growing studios across the country in different colleges in the nation. And it's always growing, and it's really interesting to meet with different students from all over the country and how they approach different problems and how they tackle them and learn about their different design techniques. And so something that Hannah mentioned that we really focus on at Design for America is working on local social problems. So for us at Northwestern, that means working a lot within the Evanston and Chicago communities, where we meet with different community members and community leaders to help solve any problems using design thinking within the local community. And that can range from anything from safety to healthcare to education. And there's also a wide variety of solutions that we come up with, from product design to app development to prototypes made in the workshop and forward and things like that.
So to give you a better idea, we wanted to show you a few examples of projects that we've worked on in the past, just to show kind of the range of things that DFA has worked on. And so one thing here on the left here is Gary the Bear. And so that was an example of a project where people were trying to help children with diabetes learn about how to manage their insulin and counting carbs and monitoring their own blood sugar. So it connected to an app so that they could practice these things in more of a fun and kid-friendly way. Another example is Luna Lights. And so these are motion sensor lights for the elderly, just to prevent falls at night, so that when they walk through the hall, if they're going to the bathroom or something, the lights will just turn on automatically. And also another example is Swipe Sense. So that was this is kind of an online database for doctors and nurses in hospitals, so that they can monitor their own hygienic practices, but then also each other's. So it's just this kind of collaborative process to decrease illnesses in hospitals. Another project I wanted to talk a little bit about, oh, sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. This was a project that I personally worked on last year, one of my favorite projects. This is an image from our final design for Haven Studio. So this was a music community center we worked with in downtown Chicago. And it kind of has this dual mission where it's a community center for youth, but then also to help them build their experience in the music industry. So everything from singing to instrumental practices to mixing music. So it's kind of this broad range of things that they do in the center. And so they were looking to redesign the space. They got a few sponsors, but they wanted to make sure that they use the money to redesign the center optimally and also in a research-backed way to best fulfill their mission and best serve the people who use the center. And so what DFA did was we went in, we interviewed users, we did different design and fact-finding like games and activities with the staff, but then also the students to find out how to best use the space. And then we rendered it on SketchUp and then presented it to the staff, but then also to the future architects and designers who were going to be working on this project to kind of give them this image and rendering of ideas and different features that the research showed would be best to have.
And then another project that wrapped up this past winter of last year was with Adler Planetarium in Chicago. So there was a team at DFA and Northwestern that worked with Adler Planetarium to help them solve the problem that they were having of light pollution, especially being so close to Chicago. It's very hard to escape that. And for a planetarium, that's not exactly the best thing to have happen. And so the team worked with Adler, and they discovered after visiting Adler and speaking to many of the employees there that something they noticed was the lights surrounding Adler Planetarium were kind of dome shaped. So there was a lot of light escaping from the top of the street lamps that were there that they thought they would be able to fix and render in a different way. And so they were looking at ways in which they could redesign the lampposts so that, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner there, that they were kind of capped at the top. So the light didn't escape into the sky as much near Adler to help reduce the light pollution, but it was still able to cast downwards at night. Therefore, people were still safe to walk around and they knew where they were walking at night. And so I think the way the team left it was they created all these different prototypes and mock-ups using the 3D printers at Ford, as well as the workshop downstairs to create and engineer some solutions and some examples. And they're currently still working with and waiting for the Chicago bureaucracy, I guess, to get really moving on the different light solutions that Adler can implement nearby. And then something that's also really unique about DFA is not only are there local challenges and things that the students tackle, but there's actually national projects as well. And so Design for America, since it is a national organization, there's a lot of bigger name companies that love to work with Design for America and Design for America students, such as P&G and most recently Unilever. So I'm currently on the Unilever project where we are trying to make personal care products more ethically and or ethically better, I suppose, while still maintaining this kind of sense of excitement within college students where they want to use these personal care products more that are refillable and recyclable. So right now with Unilever, DFA is working on creating some different tooth tabs. So instead of in a jar that they're currently coming in and trying to come out with, there's different dispensers that are being mocked up and things like that, similar to how Tic Tacs are dispensing or Pez dispensers, so that they can create personal care products, in particular in the form of tooth tabs, which is more condensed and powdered toothpaste for students so that they're more convenient, aesthetically pleasing, and sustainable. And so then the way Design for America is structured is there's typically a couple of different meetings that happen a week where teams individually are able to meet within themselves to work on whatever they need to work on. But then there's also Open Studio that happens every week, which is where all the different teams come together and they work together on different design sprints and learn about different design topics of that week, and see if any of the teams need any help and if they can provide any help that way. Something that's also unique is that Design for America is now working with the Engineering Design Innovation Master's students who are able to provide some mentoring for the different students at Northwestern in DFA and help them along the path that way. And so here's a quick example of something we actually did during COVID times. So since everything kind of became virtual, it was very difficult to still have that hands-on feel that's very collaborative, which DFA really, really loves and tries to incorporate as much as possible. So the way that we decided to kick it off was through a lot of skill building, virtual skill building, I suppose that is. So we held a lot of different workshops with DFA students, primarily within SolidWorks, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe XD. And as you can see with the ice cream scoops, that is actually something that DFA students created through SolidWorks, as well as some other digital platforms to colorize and make the surfaces of the 3D CAD renderings more metallic looking. So that way we try to kind of utilize the time as best as possible for students when they jump into the projects, they were more fully equipped.
So we want to end by just talking about like what motivates a student to join DFA. What are the reasons why someone might be interested in this? And so the first reason I think that really stood out to me, at least, was the opportunity to have this social impact and to use my skills in order to kind of get out of the Northwestern bubble and explore the wider Evanston and Chicago community. So I think that's been a really good way to engage with the wider community and learn more about where we're living, because a lot of students are here for 4 years and don't really venture kind of outside this little Northwestern bubble they create for themselves. So I think that's been a really great opportunity, and it's amazing to see the impact directly that we have on these nonprofits that we work with. So I think another reason why a lot of people join is it's a great opportunity to build skill sets. So we do have a lot of engineers that come, mechanical engineers, but then also people in the manufacturing design, and really all from all corners of McCormick. But then in addition, like I'm an economics and psychology major, we get a lot of people from everywhere, from Weinberg to we've gotten a few Medill, people who are interested in marketing, graphic design, business. So DFA really speaks to any industry and any field that students are looking to go into. And I know personally also in different types of interviews, I was able to speak about the skills that I built, but it didn't matter what industry I was interviewing for, something about DFA was relevant. So obviously engineering and product design interviews, I had a lot to talk about, but then even just basic skills you would use in any job. So relationships with stakeholders, building timelines, building budgets, managing teams, you kind of get all of these things from DFA. So I think that's why it's also a unique club in that way. And then thirdly, we're lots of fun. It's a great group of people. It's been a great social community for me on campus as well. And I think I speak on behalf of the entire club when I say we've made a lot of lifelong friends from it. And so it's nice to not only be colleagues, but then also have that social aspect as well. So it's just been a really great experience for me personally, for Maddie, and it's been very exciting to share this with all of you as well. So thank you so much for coming. Yeah, we really appreciate your time.
Thank you. A great presentation. And now I will open it for any questions.
So hi, I'm Wei Chen, Chair of Mechanical Engineering. I'm sorry I was late at the beginning, but it's very exciting to see all the projects that you have. So I'm curious about that. It seems like some of the products you show are pretty matured in terms of its development. I wondered whether you feel you have sufficient access to, say, prototyping, fabrication, because some of those can be difficult to create a prototype, right? So how did you resolve those issues? I'm very curious about the strategy you use to kind of deal with the resource, right? Or were you giving lots of access to resource or not? Just very curious about that.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think there's a variety of ways we try to tackle that. So I think one thing is that we try to make all teams very diverse in their skills and also their years of students, so that they have, if it's going to be a more engineering based project, we have more people with those technical skills on the teams. And so I think that's one way we go about it. We also are very selective in which products, which nonprofits and challenges we choose to take on, because we really want to strike that balance between challenging our students, but then also having realistic expectations for the amount of resources and the amount of knowledge that they have in order to approach these solutions. So sometimes if something is a little bit too technical for a team, they'll create a mock-up or a rendering or something like that, and then present it as kind of a recommendation and then kind of hand it off to people who do have those technical skills. So they go as far as they can go. And then in terms of just financial resources, we had previously gotten funding from the national organization, and now we are getting funding from Northwestern itself as a recognized club.
Okay, great. And a follow-up question is about how you determine the project topic. I wonder whether there is a process at the beginning that different teams have to make a pitch, and then you decide what you work on together, and also at a national level, right? How do you coordinate this decision making? Do you have maybe an executive committee, kind of overseeing all the institutions?
It's a phenomenal question. So within Design for America at Northwestern, I know we have 2 project scoping chairs. So they reach out to local community members within Evanston as well as Chicago to see if there's anything that kind of we can help them with. And they show them all the work that Design for America has done in the past. And they say that, we really like your organization because of X, Y, and Z, and we would love to help contribute to your growth in any way possible. And then for a nationals level, I think there's a whole nother board and room of people for the nationals level. I know for sure Ross and Glory and some other people who help rally up people from across the country. But I think also Professor Gerber can speak more to that as well if she would like.
Thank you, Maddie. I think you did a great job. Dr. Chen, there's many different ways that projects are determined at different studios, but I think Maddie and Hannah covered it pretty well. They do have to fit within this framework of socially responsible design. Like, we've definitely had people come before and say, oh, I want to create a new vending machine for, this is not an actual project, but hypothetically, a new vending machine for candy. Well, like, that doesn't really fit. While it could be a technically interesting design challenge, it doesn't really fit within the scope. And even with these project partners, it's been really fun to work with them and try and negotiate a project that has social impact and negotiate that. So for example, one concrete one that I loved was with Fiat Chrysler car company. They came to us and they said, we have all these self-driving cars. We need to think more about how we're going to design these self-driving cars. And we pushed back on them and said, well, why don't we think about what the experience of the pedestrian is with self-driving cars, which is a perspective they had not taken. They were, from the driver's perspective inside. And so we were able to do a project with them that was basically about pedestrian safety in the time of self-driving cars, which was a totally new perspective for them. And they were happy to have that perspective.
I also see a question in the chat. How do you join DFA? And so we have recruitment at usually once or twice a year. We have a booth at the organization fair. And so people either hear about us like through social media or through word of mouth or through the fair. And then we have an application process and interview, and just to make sure that they're joining for the right reasons, that they're interested in social impact. Like, it's not enough to be interested in the design portion. We want people who are also passionate about making that social impact and joining for that as well. So really making sure that that's the motivation for joining. And so that's kind of the overview of the process.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat. One is, how does one join DFA? And then the second question is, in fact, I had the same question. Right now it's DFA Design for America. then I was like extension design for the world. And then, we have this COVID thing going on. So Professor Patankar has a question about, did your projects do anything with COVID related,
For sure. I can help tackle the COVID question. And Hannah, please jump in as well. So Hannah and I became studio leads a week after the travel ban in March. So we're very well versed to answer that question. As I showed you before, we tried to do a lot of workshops just as COVID was kind of really starting and was really scary. So just trying to build skills as much as possible and less focused on direct community partner involvement because everybody was just finding their footing at that time. So we use that as kind of a ramp up where we enabled everybody with the digital skills possible in Illustrator, Adobe, CAD files, and things like that. And then more recently, this past fall, winter, and now spring, that's when we started to work with community partners again. And so the way that that's worked is there's less visits, like physical visits where we go and see the space and things like that, but there would still be that constant communication with the community partners via email or Zoom and things like that, where teams would be able to hear directly from them and then via Zoom work together as well. And so we had less projects that needed physical prototyping and building in the workshop at the beginning couple quarters, but now as people are getting more vaccinated and a lot more testing is happening at Northwestern, now more projects are more focused on physical building and prototyping that are happening this quarter, I believe. Hannah, is there anything else you wanted to add to that? Or Professor Gerber?
Yeah, I might just, oh, go ahead, Hannah.
Sorry, go on, Professor Gerber.
I just might add that they're nationwide. We do have a couple, we do have a lot of projects that are looking at COVID specifically. And we had an international project actually partnering with the World Design Organization and IBM to look at COVID writ large. It's been a really interesting and sensitive time on that topic in particular. As you can imagine, the folks that need the most help have been so strapped. And like every moment has to be, we don't want to get in their way if it's between talking to us or giving a vaccine. And so there's been this careful navigation. I think I'm really proud of all the teams at the different universities doing really careful navigation to make sure they're providing added capacity rather than getting in the way of a core responsibility of that group. Does that make sense?
The question actually that I was trying to get at was, were there in fact solutions that you were asked to find because of the COVID specific challenges? And one could be, better way to
yes.
vaccines or
on a national level, yes.
Remote learning, right?
Yeah. So answer on a national level, yes. And then we actually have a couple cases of alumni who had done the Design for America experience, and there's a handful of them that are in medical school right now, and they actually led initiatives within their hospitals that were way above their medical students, and they're leading these organizational and design efforts to make the medical environment safe. This was like during March, April, May at the beginning. And so it's been really exciting to see how they've applied their Design for America training to the medical context directly. So yes, on many levels there have been, is a short answer.
Yeah, I think that was a great way of saying it. And then also, although Northwestern DFA didn't have COVID specific challenges per se, it has been a very contentious time in other sectors and in other, just with everything. And so some of our projects kind of spoke to some of those other things. An example from some of the projects from this year were building a platform to help Black business owners gain more recognition and get more customers and kind of connect with one another. So a platform for both the owners and for customers who are looking to support that. And then another project was to try to get more women to vote, to sum it up briefly.
There was another question. How does one join DFA?
Sure. So I spoke to that briefly earlier, just about we have the booth at the org fair, we have our social media. And so if someone wants to join, we send out an application usually once or twice a year. We have recruitment depending on what's happening or depending on how many spots we have. And then we have a brief interview just, as I said, to make sure that people are looking to really to really follow the mission of the organization and to make sure that they're looking for the design aspect, the skill building aspect, but then also the interest in making social impact. So that's an overview of the steps that usually we have during our recruitment process.
Okay, thank you. So I think great presentation, great discussion. What I would like to do at this point is to do our raffle and then stay on for those who want to stay on and continue the discussion. So again, thank you for the great presentation. So for today, since the topic is Design for America, I have designed a scheme to figure out a raffle winner. So here I go. Name a city in the United States. Name a city in the United States that experiences the largest difference between the average summer temperature and the average winter temperature. So a place that has the worst summers, but also worse winters, where the difference is the largest. So as an example, San Francisco will not be the right answer because it's fairly even all year round. Honolulu will not be the right answer. So with that, please enter your answer in chat window, and then I'll announce which city, and then we'll find out who is the closest. So I'll give you 2 more minutes. Do we keep guessing? Please no. Okay, going once, going twice. It's gone. So the answer is Minneapolis. So Minneapolis, St. Paul. So with that as an answer, I think Greg and Hillary are the winners for today's raffle. But Liz is not too far from there either. I know where Duluth is. I've been there. So is there anybody else I miss? And so that's the answer. Minneapolis. It's got really harsh winters, but also really warm, hot summers. So thank you. Hillary will get in touch. Hillary or Jeremy will get in touch with the winners, but we can continue our discussion.
But Manohar, I just Googled it, say Los Angeles.
Really, I need to
Can't
go
trust
back
that.
to my notes.
I did some research too. I found Los Angeles as well, but I'm trusting
Really?
you. Yeah, you're in charge though, so it's whatever you.
Yeah,
that's
so we
okay.
let them get to the awards, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So so maybe it's that global warming thing. I need to recheck my calculations.
Sounds good.
But for today, if it's okay with everybody, we will go with Minneapolis or St. Paul. All right.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Unfortunately, I have to get going. I have another call, but thank you so much to Maddie and Hannah. Wonderful work. It's just such a pleasure to hear from you.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So much
Bye.
for having us.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.